This story begins not with an argument, but with a moment of earned silence. It begins with Dr. Evelyn Reed, settled into Seat 1A, the most exclusive suite on the aircraft. For 18 long months, she and her team at Innovate Forward had existed in a state of perpetual motion, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unshakable belief in their shared mission. They were working to build a future free from the cold, invisible hand of algorithmic bias, to create ethical AI that would serve humanity, not divide it. Just that morning, at dawn, the final papers were signed. A multi-billion-dollar merger was complete, positioning their company as the undisputed global leader in its field. This flight from New York to London wasn't just a trip, it was an exhalation. It was the first moment of genuine peace Evelyn was affording herself. Seat 1A was more than a luxury, it was a sanctuary she had built for herself, one sleepless night at a time. The irony, a cruel and sharp one, was that the very real world, human bias her work was designed to eliminate was waiting for her just outside the cockpit door. The confrontation, a calculated insult. "Ma'am," the flight attendant began. Her voice was pitched just a little too loud, slicing through the quiet cabin with a sharp edge of authority. Her name tag read, Karen, and her smile was a sterile, practiced thing that didn't come close to reaching her eyes. It was a smile that signaled she was in charge, and that her patience was a resource already stretched thin. She was speaking directly to Dr. Evelyn Reed, and the implication of her tone hung in the air, as thick and suffocating as the recycled cabin atmosphere, that Evelyn, a black woman, could not possibly belong in this seat. "I'm afraid there's been a mistake. This seat is reserved," Karen said, drawing out the words with a condescending slowness, as if explaining a complex concept to a child. "For one of our VIP passengers." Just behind her, a flustered-looking white man in a golf shirt gestured with thinly veiled impatience toward Seat 1A. He was the VIP she was referring to. It was clear what had happened. The crew hadn't bothered to check Evelyn's ticket or the manifest. They saw a black woman in a first-class suite and a white man waiting, and they made an immediate, corrosive assumption. They assumed she was the one who was out of place. What this flight crew couldn't possibly comprehend was that this simple, ugly act of discrimination would trigger a chain of events that would change everything. Not just for their flight, or for their careers, but for the entire airline. Because the woman they so casually underestimated was, in fact, the person who held their fate in her hands. This is the story of what happens when karma decides to fly first class. Have you ever been treated unfairly simply because of how you looked? Drop your experiences in the comments below. And if you stand against prejudice and for justice being served, hit that subscribe button right now and type "justice" along with where you're watching from in the comments section. Section 1, The Weight of Power. Dr. Evelyn Reed wasn't just any passenger with a premium ticket. At 45, she was the visionary founder and CEO of Innovate Forward. The ink was barely dry on a contract that had been her singular focus for over a year and a half. This flight was supposed to be her reward. And in a stunning twist of irony, the airline she was flying had just signed an exclusive, 9-figure corporate travel contract with her company. It was a partnership so significant that the profits from it would likely be paying this very crew's salary for years to come. They were not just disrespecting a passenger, they were disrespecting the single most important client they had. With a practiced calm, Evelyn retrieved her phone. She didn't offer a lengthy explanation or a defensive plea. She simply presented the screen, where her digital boarding pass was clearly displayed, Dr. Evelyn Reed, Seat 1A, Platinum Elite VIP. "I believe you'll find everything is in order," she said, her voice perfectly level and controlled. "I am the VIP passenger assigned to this seat." Karen barely afforded the screen a glance. "There must be a computer glitch," she insisted, giving a dismissive wave of her hand as if swatting away an inconvenient fly. "We can find you another spot, perhaps in the main cabin." The sheer, breathtaking audacity of the offer, to be displaced from a first-class suite she had more than earned to a likely middle seat in economy, was an insult of the highest order. It was in that moment that Evelyn made a decision. She would not get angry. She would not raise her voice. She would be the calm, collected, powerful CEO that she was, and she would handle this with surgical precision. "No," she said, her voice soft but as unyielding as steel. "I will not be moving. I suggest you check your manifest again." Section 2, The Escalation of Arrogance. Karen's plastic smile finally vanished, replaced by a flash of irritation. "Ma'am, you're holding up our entire boarding process," she snapped. With a dramatic spin on her heel, she marched toward the galley. She returned moments later with her supervisor, a man whose name tag identified him as Mark, lead flight attendant. He didn't make eye contact with Evelyn. He didn't ask for her side of the story. He simply addressed the space above her head. "I understand there's some confusion about the seating," he began, his tone even more condescending and patronizing than Karen's. "There is no confusion, Mark," Evelyn stated, her voice remaining unnervingly calm. "There is, however, an attempt by your crew to remove me from my legally purchased and assigned seat." Mark let out a long, theatrical sigh, a performance for the other passengers. "Look, we have a very important passenger who has been allocated this seat. Sometimes the system has errors, and we have to make adjustments to meet operational requirements." "And what operational requirement is being met by displacing me for him?" Evelyn asked, gesturing calmly toward the man in the golf shirt. "Or is it simply that he is a white man, and I am a black woman, and you have made an assumption based on nothing more than that?" The directness of the question struck a nerve. The civility they had been hiding behind was torn away. "Now, let's not make this about race," Mark snapped, falling back on the oldest, most tired retort in the book. Karen then seized the opportunity to escalate further, turning to Mark and falsely accusing Evelyn of being disruptive and yelling, a complete fabrication, as Evelyn hadn't raised her voice a single decibel. The situation was spiraling, built on a foundation of their prejudice and now cemented with their lies. Realizing he was losing control of the narrative he had invented, Mark decided to play his final card. "Fine," he said, his voice dripping with menace as he pulled out his radio. "I'm calling the captain. He'll have you removed from this aircraft for non-compliance." Section 3, The Captain's Final Mistake. A few minutes later, the captain emerged from the cockpit. He strode down the aisle with an air of absolute authority and stopped, towering over Evelyn's seat. "Ma'am, I am Captain Roberts," he announced. "This is my aircraft. I'm going to ask you one last time to relinquish this seat and move. If you refuse, I will have no choice but to call airport security and have you deplaned." This was the culmination of their arrogance, the peak of their misplaced power. They had threatened her, lied about her behavior, and now the captain himself was ordering her off the plane, all without a single person bothering to perform the most basic element of their job. Checking the official passenger manifest. Evelyn looked up, taking in the scene, the captain standing over her like a judge, and the smug, triumphant faces of Mark and Karen behind him. They believed they had won. "Very well, Captain," she said, her voice as calm and still as a frozen lake. "Please allow me one moment. I need to make a phone call." The crew exchanged victorious smirks, assuming it was a futile, face-saving gesture. A call to a husband, perhaps, or a lawyer. It didn't matter. In their minds, the outcome was already decided. Section 4, The Phone Call That Halted a 747. Evelyn reached into her briefcase, bypassing her wallet and papers. She pulled out her phone and navigated to a single contact saved as David Chen, EVP Ops. David was the executive vice president of North American operations for this very airline. He and Evelyn had spent the last 3 months in intense negotiations, finalizing her company's massive, 9-figure contract. The call was answered on the very first ring. "David, my apologies for the direct call," Evelyn began, her voice cool and precise, yet loud enough for the captain and his crew to hear every single word. "I'm not calling to celebrate the merger just yet. I'm calling because I have a significant problem. I am currently on your flight 765, from New York to London, in my assigned seat, 1A. Your captain, a Mr. Roberts, is currently standing over me, threatening to have airport security forcibly remove me from his aircraft. The color drained from Captain Roberts' face as if a plug had been pulled. Mark and Karen froze, their smug expressions melting away into a mask of dawning, sickening horror. He and his lead flight attendants, a Mark and a Karen, have collectively decided that I do not belong in this seat, Evelyn continued, her delivery flawless and devastating. I have informed them that I will not be moving. The problem, David, is not a seating error. The problem is the entire flight crew. As of this moment, our multi-billion-dollar partnership is officially under review. And the only way to even begin to salvage it is for you to provide a completely new, professional crew for this aircraft. Right now, I do not feel safe with these individuals. There was no hesitation on the other end of the line. Consider it done, Evelyn, David said, his voice tight with controlled fury. Do not move from your seat. The station manager is on his way to the gate right now. The current crew will be deplaned. All of them. Evelyn ended the call and looked up at the three of them. They stood as pale, silent statues of disbelief and terror. Well, Captain, she said, her voice even and devoid of emotion. It seems there has been a change of plans. Your station manager will be arriving momentarily to facilitate the deplaning of you and your entire crew. You have approximately 5 minutes. Section 5, The Walk of Shame. Right on cue, a loud thud echoed through the cabin as the jet bridge reconnected to the aircraft. The station manager, a man whose face was a mask of pure panic, rushed on board. He didn't even glance at the crew, his entire focus was on Evelyn. Dr. Reed, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I am so sorry. We are handling this. He then turned to the stunned, silent crew, his voice suddenly as hard as steel. Captain Roberts. Mark. Karen. All of you. Off this plane. Now. Your flight credentials and company IDs have been suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. Leave the aircraft. The walk of shame was a sight to behold. The 3 crew members, once so puffed up with arrogance and self-importance, now seemed to shrink. They shuffled down the aisle in a defeated, deadening silence, their faces ashen. As they disappeared down the jet bridge, a palpable wave of relief washed over the cabin. The man in the golf shirt who had started the entire ordeal was quietly and discreetly shown to a vacant seat in premium economy. Within 10 minutes, a new, professional crew boarded the plane. The new captain made his way directly to Evelyn's seat. Dr. Reed, he said, his voice filled with genuine respect. Welcome aboard. On behalf of the airline, please accept our sincerest apologies for the delay. Conclusion, the true cost of bias. The rest of the flight was exactly what she had hoped for, a peaceful, uneventful journey across the Atlantic. The feeling wasn't one of revenge, but of a profound, weary satisfaction. It was about ensuring that blatant bias has a tangible cost, and that you cannot treat people with such disrespect and disdain without consequence. Now, while the names and some specific details in this story have been changed to create a clear parable of the justice we all wish was this common, the core of this experience is devastatingly real. The phenomenon of flying while black is not a myth, it's a documented reality where black passengers are disproportionately scrutinized, questioned, and removed from flights. This story had a powerful and swift resolution because Dr. Reed was in a unique position of leverage. But it leaves us with a heavy question: what about the people who face the same ugly prejudice every single day, without the same power to fight back? That is the question that stays with us. This incident was never just about a seat on a plane, it was about dignity. It's a stark reminder that true authority doesn't come from a uniform or a job title, it comes from integrity, character, and respect. Real, lasting change comes from all of us, from passengers who speak up, who film injustice, and who refuse to be silent bystanders. A person's worth is never determined by someone else's prejudice. And sometimes, the most powerful response isn't a loud shout, but a calm, quiet phone call that changes everything. Stories like this are a powerful reminder of the battles for basic dignity fought every day. If you believe in the power of these stories to create change, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. I want to hear from you, so please, share your own story of instant karma or seeing justice served in the comments below. Thank you for watching.